So it's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Michael SVIC, one of my mentors and advisors through this process as well, professor of both the Carsey School of Public Policy and the Paul College of Business and Economics. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. That's really impressive. I should mention at the beginning, it says in your program that the presenter today is Julie Eads. And I can tell you she's sorry she's not here. You may be able to tell I'm not Julie Eads. I know Julie Eads and I know Julie Eads. I am delighted today to actually be here to give you this award. So I'm glad I have this opportunity because Clara Miller is really a special person. Clara Miller is president and director of the Heron Foundation, but I've known Clara for many years as a longtime colleague, friend, and partner in work. And I think the people who came here today specifically to see Clara know that Clara is the real thing. Clara is one who's really made a difference in our field in a profound way. Clara graduated from UNH in 1972 with a really practical degree in studio art. And she'll probably tell you why that is practical as well. Since her graduation, she has dedicated her career to helping address inequality in America in many different ways, and has been really effective in doing that. She's widely recognized as one of the most innovative and influential people in the field of impact investing and social change, and has received many awards that recognize that fact, most recently being named Investor of the Year by Institutional Investor magazine. And probably, Clara, you probably still don't think of yourself primarily first and foremost as an investor, and yet there it is. For her professional career, she founded the Nonprofit Finance Fund, an organization focused on helping nonprofit organizations and their supporters become more financially stable and effective, and allowing them to explore opportunities, weather storms. And here's a key that Clara's always used. She believes in using data and ideas combined to make things happen. That's often unusual in our field, people who are familiar and feel comfortable using both data and promoting new ideas. Clara joined the Heron Foundation in 2011, right around the time of the financial collapse, just after, and concluded that there were still a lot of problems that had to be dealt with, and that in many cases, poverty was worse than it had been beforehand. In a really bold move, and for those of you who have worked in the foundation, you'll understand how bold this is, she led a major restructuring that broadened the foundation's impact as a major influencer in the field. What did she do? She took the idea of actually breaking down what program officers do and what foundations do. For those of you not familiar with foundations, there are the people who give the money away, they're the program officers, and then there are the people who invest the money, and in most foundations, those people don't talk to each other. The people who give the money away, the 5% earnings each year, they give the money away and they have their little program, but the vast majority of the funds, the huge corpus of funds that are invested, are typically invested by conventional investors who are hired by the foundation, and that money goes into conventional investments. And Clara looked at this and said, this is crazy. Of course, she was bucking 100-year of conventions, but she led the Heron Foundation to actually erase that distinction and say, we're going to invest our entire corpus in our mission. So this was really an incredible idea in foundations. And not only did she say it, but she's now done it. So the Heron Foundation, really the first major foundation in the United States that not only gives charitable funds to grants to organizations, but also invests its money to pursue the same mission. One last thing I want to say about Clara that people admire her for is she's a great writer. People in this field who read what she has to say about impact investment, about managing nonprofits, her writing is concise, insightful, thoughtful, and people look to it for guidance. And she's been published in everything from her own publications to the Financial Times, the Stanford Social Innovation Review. So her writing is widely admired. For all of these reasons, UNH's Center for Social Innovation and Enterprise is delighted to award Clara Miller with the 2017 Social Innovator of the Year Award. And at this point, I'd like to call up Fiona Wilson, who is going to, with me, make this award.
Thank you, Michael. We're really excited to give out this annual Social Innovator of the Year Award to Clara Miller. But before I do that, I also just want to recognize in the audience today, we're really thrilled to have our 2013 winner, Paul Bradley, our 2014 winner, Eric Schwartz, and our 2016 winner, Joe Keefe. We're so glad you could be back with us again today. Thanks. Our Social Innovator of the Year Award recognizes a New England leader with a demonstrated commitment to social innovation. And as you've heard, Clara is a true visionary and a true pioneer. Welcome back home to UNH. Come up and get your award, Clara.
Good morning, everybody. And thank you, Fiona, and thank you, Michael, for that lovely and generous introduction. I actually had an English minor to fall back on, so it was a deeply practical degree. And also thank you, Michael, for your extraordinary leadership in the community development field. It's really special. I just want to say hello also to some folks from my life in general, my board chair at the Heron Foundation, also the founder of GuideStar and currently the president of an extraordinary social enterprise and founder of an extraordinary social enterprise, the Retreat Farm in Brattleboro, Vermont, Buzz Schmidt. And someone who, of course, makes me inordinately nervous is in the audience today. My older sister, Ann Chamberlain, who is here with her husband, John, and my niece, Kate, their daughter. Those of you who have big sisters in the audience will understand what I mean. It doesn't get any better with age. It's great to be on the UNH campus, and I really find it unrecognizable in many ways, but a friend of mine before the talk this morning comforted me by saying, well, you're also unrecognizable compared to what you were in 1972. And that may be a good thing, let me tell you. And may I say congratulations, especially to this morning's contestants. I was privileged to see some of the judging, not all of it, and their presentations. And I am deeply relieved that they're doing their wonderful work. They showed me an extraordinarily creative, hopeful, and pragmatic future in the face of real, deep, shared challenges. Thanks for just getting on with it. And before the awards, may I say congratulations, especially to those folks who won't be winning this time. It's very important to remember that this is a good sign for innovation, that it's in the cracks of the system that the great economist Kenneth Boulding tells us the real change and the real innovation occur. So take heart, your time will come. Every idea I saw was remarkable. So what in the world do I mean by the title of my speech, which is A Revolution of Capital? Isn't that something of a contradiction in terms? Aren't the interests of workers and owners just always going to be reliably in opposition? And why would owners, AKA capital, want to revolt anyway? It seems like things are going pretty well for them these days. I don't think I'm alone in my view that we need to remake the economy so it's productive for an expanding rather than a contracting number of us. And it seems that business as usual does not only not clear that threshold, but it seems less and less likely to clear that threshold going forward. Continuing on the path of wealth inequality that we're on is not sustainable either for the winners or the losers. Its history and world events have been quite clear on that. It's just as bad as for people who think they're winning now. There's a famous British historian, Eric Hobsbawm, who was interviewed recently. He died a couple years ago, but he was interviewed before he died. You know, he was asked. He's revered. He's a Cambridge historian. He was asked. He said the problem with the politics of the last 30 years is that the rich have forgotten to be afraid of the poor. And I think we're at that place. So, we also know that innovation begins with a questioning of our cherished assumptions. I might easily say, damn the economists, full speed ahead these days. Modern portfolio theory, Ricardo, you know, Marx, we're all in a world that they would not recognize. So we are in a place of reinvention, I'm happy to say. Hence, a revolution of capital. Very simply, investors, alongside enterprises, social good, and prosperity, were never meant to be in worlds apart. In fact, they must exist together to succeed. The way we deploy the tools of enterprise, finance, and production can and must make a net contribution, a net positive net contribution, every single one of them, to people, place, and planet. This is nothing more nor less than what an economy is meant to do in the first place. I feel like these are in extraordinary duh moments in the world. And the fact that this is innovative is a little daunting to me. So what does this have to do with me and my path? I'm going to tell a story. I've written about it. You've heard a little about it from others, I'm sure, of what we could call applied social innovation based on my experience over the past 6 years. And in doing so, I hope to highlight the possibilities of a capital revolution, or at least a capital reinvention, from the vantage point of an investor, an institutional investor, the Heron Foundation. For those not familiar with private foundations, and Michael gave you a little bit of a preview, our mission is to help people, the Heron Foundation's mission is to help people and communities help themselves out of poverty, focused in the US. Big is all outdoors. Oh, that'll be easy. Get it done by Monday morning. Our total assets, foundations are nothing if not ambitious in at least what they talk about, or we talk about. Our total assets are around $280 million. Seems like a lot of money, but as we say, a kind of a rounding error on a rounding error on a rounding error in the New York City economy for one day. So the amount of money we have, depending on what you're taking on, we're good-sized, but we're not a Gates or a Rockefeller. And for that matter, if they put all of their money together, all the foundations, all of our assets, less than 1% of assets under management, and as far as spend is concerned, all foundations, all assets, less than 14 months of the US K through 12 budget. So it's not like foundations are going to fund anything, really. But as investors, we want to use our whatever muscle we might have for social good. A typical private foundation is created by a financial gift from a generous donor. The gift is invested typically conventionally for maximum return and minimum risk, and 5% is spent in grants and other qualifying expenses per IRS law. So it's not just that 14 months, it's 5% of that 14 months gets spent every year. Hardly enough. The grant makers in these walls, as Michael was saying this morning, are completely separate from the investors, both operationally, from a mission point of view, philosophically, actually physically. I sort of have these visions of they meet at the holiday party with lampshades on their heads once a year and otherwise do not cross paths. On the one hand, the grant makers say, this is not about money, this is about social good. And on the other hand, the investors say, 5% real is hard enough, get out of my way. We don't care what those companies and what those investments are doing, whether they're socially good or aligned with mission or not. And unsurprisingly, from Heron's, in my point of view, this dominant business model is sorely suboptimal. It leaves on the shelf one of a foundation's and any investor's most powerful levers for social good, the ability to approach commerce in all its forms with social benefit in mind. And at the same time, in the case of the foundation, being legally bound to be philanthropic. What an interesting place to be able to stand. Beyond this, the model itself implies that the world is a place where social good and investing are fundamentally incompatible, in different worlds, if you will. Now, Heron had never, long before I came, accepted that proposition. It was a pioneer social investor. An early Heron publication, 2003, asks the reasonable question, should a private foundation be more than a private investment company that uses some of its excess cash flow for charitable purposes? No? I mean, why is all that 100% of our assets locked up in modern portfolio theory doing things that nobody wants to talk about? Well, of course it should. And Heron had already decided then that the answer was a resounding yes. By the time I arrived in 2011, Heron had invested 40% of our assets, our endowment, our capital, in alignment with mission in all areas of the economy, a range of enterprises that went from big public companies to small nonprofits. We invested to help families get access to home ownership, to help business access facilities to expand, and for individuals to get access to training, which would lead to jobs, and companies with sound employment practices and good community practices. And we did some good. But in the wake of the 2008 crisis, we had to admit that some things had gone awry. While our portfolio of community development debt, including a loan to the New Hampshire Community Loan Fund, and I'm sorry Julia's not in the audience, had performed better than any other holding in our portfolio. I'm going to repeat that. Those assets performed better than any other asset, stocks, bonds, venture funds, private equity. The rest of our portfolio, the 60% that was conventionally invested, and most of our colleagues' portfolios, mirrored the economy as a whole. More worrying, the 2008 crisis led to the greatest stripping of assets from the poor in American history. And for a foundation whose mission is to help people and communities help themselves out of poverty, this was beyond concerning. This was undermining mission directly. Even as the stock market recovered, wealth inequality grew, making our anti-poverty mission sadly more relevant than others, and giving us a strong message about how we needed to go forward. We admitted, for example, that helping people get access to assets, the most prevalent approach to poverty alleviation at that time, was inadequate or limited at best in the absence of reliable jobs for adequate pay, and that's what we were up against. The promise through access from borrowing or building assets was ending up to be hollow, and we had to reckon with that. We concluded also that the accepted view that American poverty was an outlier, a result of a temporary market failure for a small and declining percentage of the population, had been contradicted by decades of experience, and that we were ignoring it at our peril. Equally flawed, I think we agreed, was the idea that poverty was treatable with closely targeted and limited philanthropic remedies such as grants alone. And Herron had been on that bandwagon for years. We now had to reckon with that becoming much more mainstream and much more aggressive. The sobering reality we faced was that the market failure that philanthropy was expected to address in this case was the market economy itself, which was failing to deliver on its promises to a growing percentage of Americans. A solution would require acknowledging the power of owners and investors to make change in that economy. The path became clearer. We had to go all in. But as Michael alluded to this morning, our business model was not built to go all in. Our business model was built to preserve capital from whatever was going to happen on the grant side. That's basically a failure of technology, an enterprise's technology. We were using the wrong tool to do our work. As you know, our model separates doing good from making money to do good, and implies that positive progress is not only separate from, but needing protection from the rest of the economy. In the universe that we were modeling, a relatively small cleanup crew of nonprofits and social enterprises got grants and possibly loans to solve problems, while a much larger complement of mainstream for-profits, where 100% of assets were invested, were expected to run rampant with license to create the problems the program side was meant to solve. Now, this wasn't going to work at all. This was also the route to what was commonly referred to as maximum shareholder value. Now, this sounds, if nothing else, inefficient. It implies that this worldview is somehow the natural order of things, and that the economy of investing is a separate world from the economy of philanthropy, and that the philanthropic model that toes this line has the best, or more accurately, the only chance of succeeding in its assigned role. But we're in an era of systemic problems and compressed space and time. It had the separation of business, capital markets, and investing from philanthropy and problem solving and addressing markets' failures cannot succeed. These things are coterminous. They're not successive. It had become clear that we had to push beyond marginal and toward fundamental philanthropy, and started calling it actually full frontal philanthropy, just because it sounded like a lot of fun. Where we as a foundation became an active participant in the economy, and where the operative question was, for us, was not how can we spend 5% of capital on grants so the IRS won't come after us. It was, what is the best use of a Herron dollar, any dollar, for social good? Is it investing in private equity? Is it buying and voting shares for a public company, a government bond, a nonprofit organization? All of the above. There are many choices, and a world of possibilities opens up when you look at the world that way. Our innovation really was in changing our assumptions, our rules, our infrastructure of our world. We moved forward with some fundamental strategic resets, and for that matter, operating resets, to buoy our philosophy and our ideas. We honored the idea that all investing is impact investing. I'm often asked, well, what other foundations are doing all impact investing like you are? And I say everybody is. They just don't know whether the impact is bad or good. We embraced business model changes. We set as a goal investing 100% of our capital in alignment with our mission, and as of fiscal year end 2016 got there. Now the job, of course, is to optimize. We also embraced a much broader view of investor risk. As a philanthropic investor, we have a fiduciary duty of obedience to mission. Our position is that foundations who are not doing what we're doing are in breach of their fiduciary responsibility of obedience to mission. Broad social and environmental risk, including beneficiary risk. How do what we invest in have an impact on the people we want to help? Is material risk to our mission, and it's in our investment policy statement. We positioned ourselves squarely within and mixing it up within as an activist, the economy and the market. We knew then, and we know now, that we alone cannot help people in communities out of poverty all by ourselves. This is going to take a chorus, not a soloist. And all assets, as I've said, of foundations are not going to get us where we need to go. Changing the economy, this is a gigantic job. What we needed to look for was buddies, and we needed to be pushing on all investors to see the world in the way we see it. Banks, governments, foundations, businesses, we set out affirmatively to enlist them. Be careful what you wish for. Today, we have pension funds such as CalPERS and CalSTRS, some of the largest pension funds in the world, sovereign wealth funds, BlackRock, managing $6 or $7 trillion, State Street Global Advisors, Bain Capital, KKR, all are jumping in to the impact investing pool. It's starting to become mainstream, which brings me to my next important piece. We have a battle cry at Heron. Accounting is destiny. I know you'll want to take this up at home. And when I say that, I say, what happened to that little art major? What happened in her life to lead her to this place where accounting was destiny? We have to change the way we keep score in the game. We have to change the rules and build data infrastructure that supports what we call a net contribution economy, taking into account the contribution or extraction of all enterprises in our public shared capitals. And we look, finally, to build, and possibly most importantly, in light of the kinds of things that we're experiencing today, to build the connective tissue, trust, the capacity for concerted action in localities that have frayed over time. Wall Street and Main Street need an affirmative connection, and we need to build it and maintain it today and forever. Philanthropy is a way of life. We, Heron and I, harbor no illusion of being any kind of unique prophetic voice in American philanthropic or financial markets. In fact, as I noted before, we need a chorus, not a soloist most. Problems such as climate change and violence are not bounded, consecutive, and linear. They are systemic, geographically unbounded, coterminous, and multi-sector. We need to be doing our work in real time. We can't pretend that we can solve this without everyone in the game, muscular big public companies, private equity funds, a fleet of small businesses, nonprofits, and the multiple avenues and individuals in government. We must position ourselves in the game, not on the sidelines. Philanthropy and championing social good is a way of life. It's not an afterthought. It's not a nice to have, but an imperative built into our investments, our businesses, and our lives. with a revolution of capital. Thank you.